Welcome to the deep dive.
Hey there.
So we are, as always, taking a shovel to your stack of sources, and today we are confronting a cultural and cinematic claim that, frankly, sounds too absurd to be true.
It really does. But the evidence suggests it's not only real, but it's completely reshaping the movies and shows you're watching right now.
We're doing a deep dive into what our sources are calling the Hollywood hot people problem.
And the central claim is, it's a bold one. It's that Hollywood is actively, systemically avoiding any actor who might have what they call unconventional, interesting, or even ugly features.
And this isn't just about, the main love interest being a movie star.
Oh, no, not at all. This is about a mandate, a kind of aesthetic conformity that stretches across the entire cast.
We've all kind of noticed that actors seem to get better looking every year. But the argument here is that the industry is genuinely, explicitly terrified of ugly people in 2020.
It's an avoidance strategy. It's driven by fear, and it's resulting in a complete eradication of unique faces from our screen.
And the scope of this is what's really shocking.
Right. The standard now dictates that every single person, from the hero to the random barista in the background, even monsters and historical figures, has to fit this extremely narrow beauty template.
The Instagram face.
Exactly. The symmetrical, shiny, highly curated Instagram face. And it's become this non-negotiable prerequisite for getting cast.
So over the next hour or so, we're going to trace how this happened. How did a silly little app for filtered photos become the global mandate for casting directors?
We're going to look at the consequences, especially in things like period dramas, where it just completely breaks the illusion.
And we're also going to have to hold up a mirror a little bit and confront the uncomfortable truth about our own role in this, the audience's role in enforcing this impossible standard.
But we have to start with the most shocking piece of evidence, the one that proves this isn't just an exaggeration. We have to talk about horror.
Specifically, the latest adaptation of
Yes, Frankenstein, the creature, one of the most iconic, unsettling figures in all of literature. He's a patchwork man, made from mismatched body parts, and his entire existence is defined by how repulsive.
The horror comes from the fact that everyone rejects him because he is grotesque.
So who do they cast to embody this stitched-together nightmare?
Jacob Elordi.
Jacob Elordi, who is, and I quote, routinely described as a 6'5" Calvin Klein model. He is the platonic ideal of conventional, symmetrical, modern male beauty.
It just fundamentally ruins the premise, doesn't it?
Completely.
The source asks, and it's a great question, why is an iconic, unsettling horror character now conventionally handsome? If he has a jawline that could cut glass, what exactly is the source of his profound existential?
Right. His problem in the book is that he is hideous and universally rejected for it. If he looks like a supermodel, the drama just evaporates. The horror becomes, he's in bad lighting.
It really sets the stage for this whole discussion. We've moved way beyond just casting the romantic lead as handsome.
We are now casting the literal monster, the visual embodiment of human failure and fear, as aesthetically flawless. This confirms it. Attractiveness is no longer a character trait in Hollywood. It's just the default setting for every single thing on screen.
Okay, so let's really unpack this shift. If the new template is the Instagram face, what did we lose? We're talking about the erasure of unconventional face. And with that, a loss of, texture in our stories.
What Hollywood lost was personality. That's the core of it. Our sources talk about older film where casting directors were actively looking for what they called special energy.
You think about those great character actors from, the 70s or 80s.
Exactly. Their faces were asymmetrical, they had lines, they had texture, unique angles. Their faces told you a story before they even said a word, whether or not they fit some narrow definition of beauty.
But now the goal is the complete opposite, actively avoiding interest.
Right. If you have a face with any of that texture, personality, or asymmetry, the very things that used to make a performer magnetic, you're now seen as a risk.
Yeah.
If your face doesn't look like it was carved by a 3D printer, you get relegated.
You're the quirky best friend.
The quirky best friend, the background comedian, you're certainly not.
And this is more than just, being unfair to actors. It's a real tragic storytelling.
It is, because when everyone on screen looks like they just walked off the same runway, it's impossible for us, the audience, to believe they're supposed to be average people or historical figure or someone who struggles with self-doubt.
Which leads us directly to the absurdity of miscast, where the script's description of a character is just treated like an optional suggestion.
Easily overridden by star power and a pretty face.
The most famous example, the one that comes up again and again in the analysis, is this pattern of casting stunningly attractive actors in roles that are explicitly written to be ordinary or even unattractive.
Let's talk about Wuthering Heights.
Okay.
So in the novel, the heroine, Catherine Earnshaw, she's rugged, she's untamed, she's a product of the moors. The book describes her features as, and this is a direct quote, too marked and picturesque to be called pretty.
Her whole identity is that she doesn't conform to the delicate drawing room beauty standard of her era. Her look is part of her wild outsider status.
And yet, who gets cast in modern adaptation?
Margot Robbie, or someone of that caliber. Actors who are world famous precisely because they embody the absolute pinnacle of conventional.
The visual dissonance is just.
Yeah.
It's absolute. You take an actress known globally for perfect symmetry, and you put her in the role of an outsider whose features are explicitly not conventionally pretty.
It's a decision driven entirely by the commercial appeal of a face, and it just cheapens the character's complexity.
It sends a message that modern studios don't trust the audience to engage with a story unless the protagonist is visually flawed.
And we see the exact same pattern in other genres. The source brings up Glenn Powell in that movie Hitman.
Yes.
The whole plot requires us to believe he is a nerdy, painfully ordinary professor with a forgettable face. The entire conceit of the film hinges on his ability to just blend into the background.
And yet, it's Glenn Powell.
Yeah.
The man looks like he was custom designed in the lab to be a leading man.
So how does the film try to make him look forgettable?
They slick his hair down and give him glasses.
That's it.
That is the entire effort from the costume department. And it fails instantly. He walks into a scene and just commands attention. The source says he looks like he was sculpted out of protein powder.
She just exudes charisma. And the audience is asked to perform this impossible suspension of disbelief, all because they wouldn't cast someone who actually looks like an average professor.
Which brings us to this really fascinating and, frankly, damning structural issue in Hollywood. We're calling it the Uglification paradox.
Okay, what's the logic there?
The logic is this. The industry would much rather hire an incredibly famous, beautiful star and then spend a massive budget making them look hideous.
Than just hire an actor who already has that unconventional look naturally.
Precisely. Think about Colin Farrell as the Penguin.
Right. A conventionally handsome, globally recognized star.
They cast him, and they secure a few things. First, you get a known quantity, a guaranteed box office draw. Second, you spend 6 hours a day on prosthetics, which signals to everyone that this character is important and you're committed.
And what's the third, more insidious factor?
You're ensuring that your base asset, the actor, is still beautiful underneath. If the movie bombs, or for the press tour, he can just shed the ugly look and go right back to being a stunning star for the next project.
It's a safe bet.
It's the safest bet. If you cast an unknown character actor who naturally has that energy, you're taking a risk. They don't have star power. And if the film succeeds, you now have to market a face that isn't symmetrical, which modern Hollywood seems terrified to do.
So attractiveness is the default starting point, no matter what the script says.
It's the immutable starting point. They cast the most beautiful person available and then try to work backwards to fit the character, whether that means adding prosthetics or just, a pair of glasses and calling them a nerd.
We can actually trace this aesthetic creep visually through one single franchise.
The Spider-Man franchise. It offers a perfect 3-stage evolution of the problem, and the standard has only ever moved in one direction.
Okay, let's start with the original, 2002, Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker.
He was cast specifically to be a genuine nerd. He was awkward, little clumsy, physically unassuming. The whole story worked because you believe this ordinary, almost invincible kid needed the spider bite to gain confidence.
Then we get the shift in 2012, Andrew Garfield.
Great actor, but immediately he was too cool for the role. He had that angsty, mysterious skater boy who writes poetry vibe.
He already looked like a cool kid in high school.
Exactly. He was handsome, charismatic. It weakened the whole social outcast foundation of the character.
And that brings us to Tom Holland, starting in 2017.
Who, while he has some of that dorky charm, is also, as the source notes, incredibly handsome, athletic, and built like someone who doesn't need a spider.
He looks like he could already be captain of the wrestling.
The physical transformation of the character over those 3 iterations has completely negated the core idea.
And the supporting cast shows it even more dramatic. Let's talk about Aunt May.
Aunt May is supposed to be an elderly, protective, maternal figure. In the original series, you have Rosemary Harris. She was perfect. She looked like the kind of woman who bakes cookies and worries constantly.
Then you move to Sally Field in 2012. Younger, yes, but still very clearly in that maternal guardian role.
But then, the true jump, Marissa Tomei in the current version.
Who is incredibly stunning. The aesthetic difference, monumental.
She looks like she could be Peter Parker's much cooler, fashion-forward older sister, not his elderly caregiver. The casting choice only ever pushes toward youth and high fashion.
And this is the critical takeaway, right? This is a one-way street.
It is a one-way street. Once you've set the aesthetic bar at Marissa Tomei, Hollywood will never, ever go back and cast an actress who genuinely looks like an elderly caregiver for that role. The template is set, and it only moves toward more conventional attractiveness.
And you see it with the love interests, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kirsten Dunst was beautiful, but she had a very distinct, slightly imperfect look. Then Emma Stone, gorgeous, but again, unique. Now Zendaya, who is a global fashion icon, arguably the pinnacle of today's leading woman aesthetic. All brilliant, but the progression reinforces this very narrow, highly curated definition of cinematic.
So if Hollywood is enforcing this standard, where did the standard even come from? It wasn't just handed down in a memo.
No, it was cultivated.
Yeah.
It was cultivated by social media pressure. That's the cultural fuel for Hollywood's fear.
We have to go back in time a bit to the origin of the Instagram face itself.
Yeah, think about early Instagram, maybe 2010, 2011. It was, as the source calls it, a silly little app. It was a digital scrapbook. You posted a blurry, poorly lit picture of your lunch with an ugly sepia filter.
There was no pressure for perfection. It was spontaneous, low effort.
But the moment it stopped being about filters and started being about performance, everything changed.
And that change started slowly as phone cameras got better.
Right. Suddenly, every picture required this massive effort. The platform mutated from a casual scrapbook into the giant global beauty pageant where this incredibly high standard of perfection expected in every single post.
But our source material says there were 3 specific cultural moments that really catapulted us path.
Yes, 3 turning points. The first one, surprisingly, was that 2014 song, Let Me Take a Selfie.
I remember that. It felt so disposable.
It did. But what it did was normalize the idea that we should be constantly documenting and obsessing over our own face. It made self-documentation a public performative thing. It pushed vanity into the mainstream.
But the event that really defined the self, that had to be the rise of the Kardashians.
Without a doubt. They didn't just get famous. They fundamentally reshaped the entire world's understanding of what beauty should look. They created the template for the Instagram face.
And we should probably detail that template.
We should. We're talking about that aggressively contoured look, the ski slope nose, the overfilled pillowy lips, the ultra-smooth poreless skin, and even the suggestion of things like buccal fat removal to get those hollow cheeks. That became the aspirational goal worldwide.
A goal that was completely unrealistic even for them because it was so reliant on digital editing.
And that unreachability is what triggered the third turning point, the explosion of digital editing tools, especially Facetune.
Right.
Facetune wasn't just a retouching tool, it was a standardization. It allowed any person to instantly apply that Kardashian aesthetic to their own face. And the sources point out something fascinating. People started using it to edit things they were never even insecure about before.
Like what?
Like pores, natural asymmetry, the subtle texture of human skin. Because when the default you see online is this aggressive, hyper-smooth perfection, your real face starts to feel like the wrong version.
You feel pressure to fix things that weren't even broken.
Exactly. And as cameras got more and more high def, people wanted that edited look in real life. And the irony is, people initially mocked this look. We had the Kylie Jenner lip challenge with people hurting themselves as a joke.
And now, just a few years later, that exact look is the universe fault.
The progression from parody to aspiration is insane. And because it became so normalized, the pressure on anyone in the public eye, especially young actors, became unbearable.
And you see the emotional cost of that. The source brings up Millie Bobby Brown. She's been a public figure since she was a kid.
And the source notes a really noticeable, almost distracting change in her appearance in her more recent work.
Specifically, they talk about the lip.
Right. It's a non-surgical procedure. They inject Botox just above the top lip, which freezes the muscle. It causes the lip to curl outward and stay fixed, making it look permanently fuller.
And the observation is that it makes the mouth area look a little unnatural, a little frozen, and it pulls you out of her performance.
But the heartbreaking truth is that this was almost certainly a defensive move against the relentless online scrutiny she's faced for years.
Her comment sections are just people saying she looks 40 or aged weird simply because her face, as a human being, has...
The pressure to preemptively fix these so-called flaws by conforming to the Instagram face standard is immense, young stars.
And the result is homogenization.
It is. The sources point out that every new young actress emerging in Hollywood looks almost exactly the same. Their faces have been morphed into this standard. The goal isn't uniqueness, it's standardized perfection.
They become copy-paste actresses.
Their faces fit the ideal perfectly, but they lack the visual distinctiveness you need for really deep character.
So the consequence of all this homogenization, it goes way beyond just making actors look alike. It actively damages the cinematic, especially when you put these aggressively 2025 faces into settings where they just do not belong.
This is the era of what the sources call the iPhone face.
It's a great term. It perfectly captures that visual dissonance.
It does. It describes actors who look so inherently, intensely modern, so aware of contouring, fillers, specific veneers, that they instantly pull you, the audience, out of a historical or period setting.
The term supposedly took off around 2019 with the movie The King. Someone joked that Timothée Chalamet and Lily Rose Depp looked too aware of modern technology to pass as medieval royal.
A period piece is supposed to be a window into the past. You need to believe you're looking at people from the 1700s or the 1920s, but an aggressively modern aesthetic just shatters that illusion.
Think about the analogy of the source. Imagine casting Kim Kardashian in a movie set in the 1700s.
Right. No matter what bonnet you put on her, even if she's churning butter, her whole aesthetic, the eyebrows, the lips, the digital polish, will always scream, "I just finished a TikTok dance."
It destroys the historical illusion.
And you see concrete examples of this everywhere. The sources question casting in shows like 1923, asking the viewer, since when were subtle lip fillers and perfect veneers a thing in the 1900s?
It's pervasive. If an actor's face has the visual markers of 21st century cosmetic standards, they just can't realistically portray historical characters. It pulls you right out of the world.
It's the same problem with certain actors in American Horror Story segments set centuries ago. They end up looking like influencers cosplaying history.
But it's not just about cosmetic procedures. Even naturally beautiful actors can look too modern. The source points to Dakota Johnson in Persuasion, Florence Pugh in Little Women, Millie Bobby Brown in Damsel.
They're all talented, they're all gorgeous, but their specific look feels intrinsically contemporary, almost like they carry the knowledge of their own future fame with.
And the audience absolutely picks up, even if they can't quite put their finger on why. The analysis mentions that new Netflix show, how
It got dragged online heavily because the actors looked way too modern for the late 1800s setting.
the critique was that they looked like book TikTok cosplayers.
Let's break down what that means. A book TikTok cosplayer look has specific elements. That aggressive contouring that was impossible before modern makeup, those perfectly manicured, sharply defined eyebrows.
And that specific glossy skin texture that only comes from today's high-end skincare.
Right. So when a major production gives off the vibe of amateur cosplay, the sense of immersion, the whole point of a period drama, is shattered.
It just confirms that the industry is sacrificing storytelling integrity for aesthetic safety.
And the problem isn't just with historical genres. It's destroying modern genres, too. The source makes a really compelling argument that extreme attractiveness is actually ruining the romantic comedy.
Okay, how so? Rom-coms are supposed to be wish fulfillment?
They are, but they rely on a specific type of fantasy, low fantasy. They need to feel accessible. The audience projects themselves onto the messy, relatable character. Think Bridget Jones, or a charmingly neurotic Hugh Grant.
But when you cast leads who are unrealistically attractive,
Like Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell in Anyone But You,
you instantly elevate that story to high fantasy.
it becomes inaccessible. You're asking the audience to invest in two physically flawless people complaining about problems that would vanish the moment they walked into a room.
So the argument is that commercially hot people actually make for bad rom-coms.
Because the core tropes of the genre immediately become unbelievable. How can you possibly buy the classic trope that the main girl is second best, or struggles to find a boyfriend when she looks like a supermodel?
It creates detachment. The audience just rolls their eyes. They think, I'm supposed to believe these two people are having a tough time finding someone. That's not a relatable problem. That's an insult to my intelligence.
The relatability just exits the building. All you're left with is shallow aspirational content.
You look at older rom-com stars, like Hugh Grant. He wasn't symmetrically perfect. He was endearingly messy.
Colin Firth had that stiff, awkward charm. They let you connect with their vulnerability, not their physical perfection. When perfection is the entry price for the rom-com lead, the genre loses its heart.
Okay, so we've established this fear-based mandate from Hollywood, but now we have to turn the lens back. The uncomfortable truth is that the audience, we are the primary enforced hot people problem.
That is absolutely right. Social media didn't just create the standard, it fueled the necessity for it because audiences became unbelievably vicious.
People online have this unhinged level of confidence when it comes to strangers.
They will confidently call actors ugly for having completely normal human features. A little acne, a nose that isn't perfectly sculpted, some normal skin texture. They act like they're providing valid criticism when really they are just bullying people for looking human.
And the examples are just staggering, and they're aimed at actors who are, by any objective metric, gorgeous.
Look at Millie Bobby Brown again. She posts a photo, and her comments are flooded with people saying she looks 40 or aged weird just for growing up in the public eye.
Or Florence Pugh, a beloved, incredibly talented actress who gets body shamed on the daily.
She's had to speak out about how strangers feel entitled to comment on her body, treating her like an object instead of a person.
And then there's maybe the most absurd example of how high the bar has been. The trend of calling Zendaya mid.
It's unbelievable. Zendaya, one of the most stunning, fashionable, and acclaimed celebrities on the entire planet, is routinely described online as just mediocre.
If Zendaya is mid, What does that say about the impossible filtered standard that the audience has internalized? The bar is so high that even peak physical perfection is now just considered average.
And this obsession with flawlessness is so strong, it has retroactively poisoned older media. The source tells this amazing anecdote about a viewer.
Oh, the Legally Blonde story.
Yes, a viewer couldn't finish the movie Legally Blonde because, in her words, Reese Witherspoon's teeth were too yellow.
Let that sink in. Someone stopped watching a classic movie because of the natural color of a human being's teeth. Not the script, not the accident.
It shows how deeply conditioned we are by these hyper-filtered, bleak, symmetrical digital images. Anyone who looks remotely human starts to feel wrong to the conditioned eye.
And this is the critical connection. This is the data that Hollywood studios are seeing every single day.
They are acutely aware of how quickly and viciously the online world will tear someone apart for just looking human.
So it becomes a simple formula for the studios. Why would they risk casting a unique, maybe average-looking actor only to have that person and the film's reputation torn to shreds by viral social media?
Risk avoidance. It becomes the main economic driver. Casting someone who is conventionally safely beautiful is a form of insurance against the online mob.
And this fits perfectly with the new marketing strategies that studios are all in on.
They're moving away from traditional trailers and print ads and are prioritizing one thing: virality.
They sell movies now by flooding social media with short clips of the cast doing silly little...
And the source says studios are not kidding about this. They are paying specialized TikTok editors thousands of dollars, money that used to go to traditional marketing. The primary goal is just to trend.
And to trend safely, you need safe face. People who are guaranteed to be adored, not ridiculed.
You need people who already fit that Instagram face aesthetic. Casting people you know will trend well is just the path of least resistance, which explains why every new young actor is aesthetically flawless no matter the role.
It represents such a huge cultural loss. I mean, think about a star from the 2000s, Kirsten Dunst.
Beloved for being authentically pretty. She famously had slightly crooked teeth, and director Sofia Coppola specifically told her not to fix them, that her unique smile was part of her charm.
That story is unthinkable today.
It is. If Kirsten Dunst were starting her career now, the sources argue she almost certainly would not get the same role. If Bring It On were made today, she'd likely be pressured to fix her teeth immediately or be downgraded to the quirky best friend.
Well, the lead role goes to someone who fits the current symmetrical standard.
Because the hot people aren't just playing the hot roles anymore. They're playing every role.
Yeah.
The monster, the ordinary professor, the historical figure, the relatable rom-com lead. The whole industry now operates under the belief that aesthetic perfection is the only commercially viable starting point for any character. So it all synthesizes into this one pretty sobering conclusion. Hollywood's fear of putting anyone remotely human on screen is robbing our cinema of its soul. We're sacrificing the spark that unique, textured faces used to bring to characters.
Yeah, if you think back to those great unconventional character actors who were the backbone of Hollywood, people like Shelley Duvall or Semi or the late Philip Hoffman, their faces were full of character.
Their faces told a rich story before they even delivered a single line. You knew instantly that this character was going to be complex, interesting, and grounded in some kind of messy reality.
And that's the narrative depth we're trading for this sterile symmetry. When our cinema is populated entirely by faces that look like they were manufactured to fit one narrow ideal, the storytelling just...
The immersion breaks. The film world starts to look less interesting than the real world.
So what does this all mean for us, for you, the listener? The power to change this really does rest with the audience, but it requires a change in our behavior.
It does. If we genuinely want Hollywood to stop casting copy-paste faces and to embrace more interesting talent, then we have to stop being the online enforcers of this impossible standard.
We have to stop screaming about yellow teeth like they're a jumper.
And just allow people on screen to look like normal human beings with pores and texture and asymmetry.
Cinema only feels alive, it only feels relevant, when the people in it reflect the fascinating diversity of actual humanity. If we want that reality back on our screen, both Hollywood and the audience need to stop worshiping manufactured perfection.
And start celebrating something much, the unique storytelling power that's inherent in every single...
Which leaves us with a final thought to mull over.
This whole discussion about the hot people problem, it really forces us to confront what we actually value in our story. Do we prioritize this homogenized, sterile perfection that's achieved through digital and surgical means? Or do we value the fascinating, asymmetrical, texture-rich complexity of the human face? Is our collective push for digital perfection ultimately making our fiction less compelling, less complex, and far less interesting than the reality we all live in every day?
That's the challenge that's sitting on every movie poster and every streaming thumbnail.